What's up, agents, and welcome back to another Division video where my X feed has been absolutely littered with Japanese content, obviously because I've been trying to find out as much information as I possibly could with some of the Division team being over in Japan for the FPS Day X event. And I found this publication and somebody actually sent it to me as well. It seems to be a very popular Japanese publication, and Yannick has actually done an interview. I've translated it through Google Chrome, so every aspect of this might not be, point perfect when it comes to the translation, but I think it gives a really good overview of where Division has been and where it is going, and it's definitely worthwhile just spending 10 minutes with it and kind of dissecting it a little bit. So don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for all the love and support. As always, let's get straight into it. So let's scroll down. And some stuff that we know that's pretty obvious, we'll kind of bypass a little bit. But let's just get into it. Because obviously we can see here, that we know that we are an open world looter, shooter, and things like that. We've all seen this video. I've covered it on the channel before. But you can see here that they talked a little bit about the mobile version that is currently in pre-registration. That's kind of past now. I think it's essentially waiting for the game to be released. And I've got some kind of my own theories about that because there's a crossover event coming, does that mean that we'll, see that mobile version released before March so that it can participate in the crossover event that has been talked about in the anniversary season? So I guess we will see. And we know that Division 3 has been announced as well. So here we are. So the Division 2 Evolution with Seasons 2.0 and the future. Now that was a little while ago, but it is kind of nice to kind of go back and see, thoughts and, from Yannick essentially of what, the massive thoughts essentially were when it comes to Division with Seasons 2.0. So they said here that the biggest unexpected thing, and it's a relatively recent one, was the seasonal characters. In year 6 we reworked seasons system and tried to introduce the idea of creating a new character each season. However, there was a very clear no from the community, and I mean I think everybody saw that. Interesting that this is in Japanese media, so I do wonder if they were kind of the same. It's kind of an aspect of the game's community we don't see very much. I don't feel like they use Twitch or they use the same platforms as we do, so I don't often feel like we see their points of view, and that has been quite refreshing, seeing a lot of the Japanese players pop up on my X page recently to see them point of views and what they enjoy and what they don't enjoy. So that's kind of interesting. So I'm assuming it was the same from all over the world, no matter where you were playing. But they said it wasn't an easy decision to make as the feature was already well under development, but we went ahead and did it, which that means they didn't do it, essentially, just bad translation, and we feel like we're in a better place now. So then it moved on to talk about that just a little bit more, where it says, I think it's still important to keep the experience fresh with each season. Now that you drop the idea of seasonal characters, how do you plan to approach keeping things fresh in future seasons? So then Yannick said, each season we strive to change the feel and the game, introducing seasonal mods, which we all know by now. We've had quite a few of them. We tried out a variety of different types of modifiers, but the one we introduced this season, which is called Rebellion, is particularly unique because it talks about the NPC companion that fights alongside you. But then it says, we plan to continue experimenting with bolder ideas for seasonal mods in the future so that we can provide significantly different experience each season, which that's a pretty cool translation if that's exactly how they think about it. They want them not to just be, oh, you hit a little bit harder with a gun. They want them to really, really mix up how we play. So it says, will companion continue in the future, which obviously means will the companion make a return? So it says here, companions are a fun new mechanic that also is useful for solo players. Are you planning on exploring them in future seasons? So then the reply is, if we didn't believe this idea was interesting, we wouldn't have implemented it in the first place. We've created this season. It's just a first test. So we have had hints before that companions will return at some point. I don't really feel like companions has kind of got to the place where I think they're fully accepted by the community. I think there is still a little bit of jankiness there, that they're not quite as free flowing when it comes to gameplay. There's quite a lot of work still needed from the player that doesn't quite make it the enjoyable experience I'm pretty sure Massive wants it to be. The iteration we are at now is certainly way better than what we had back in the PTS. So I am looking forward to, if we do see the companions make a comeback in one way or another, whether it be a season or something else, that hopefully that smoothness of play is just a little bit better. And to be honest, that they have a little bit more effect on the gameplay loop. Like, you know, I feel like when you go into a fight, they're just something that's kind of there waiting to give you a res. You can kind of go about your day and ignore them if you really want to, and just a free res, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it takes away a little bit from what I feel like it should be. Anyway, we digress. And it says here, we received a lot of positive and negative feedback from the community about the companion feature, and we've taken it as a learning experience. We see potential in the idea and would like to bring it back in the future, which is, you know, good to hear. Then we've got the picture of the Division Definitive Edition. We've covered that multiple times already. But it says here, speaking of the community, I think the atmosphere in the Division community is different overseas than it is in Japan. What is your impression of the Japanese community at FPS Day X? So Yannick then turned around and said, these events are a great opportunity to meet with local communities in each country. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to meet many players yet today, but I plan to go and meet them as soon as they leave the room. However, from what I've seen online, Japanese players are very passionate, but also seem to like the expectations of the Division and the experience, which is a little different from other regions. Now, does he say there? Yeah, it's a bit of a bad translation, but essentially saying that Japanese players may like different things to, you know, maybe us or in the UK or wherever. However, perhaps due to the language barrier or different online platforms we use, we don't have many opportunities to interact directly with Japanese players. That's why it's great to be here, and you're looking forward to hearing directly from them about their preferences and desires. So yeah, we don't really get the answer to why, but yeah, I kind of feel like that's kind of true. I feel like there is a platform separation that might make them things a little bit different. So this was a little bit of an interesting question. So clan feature development, and we don't really see anybody asking for this. I've been kind of desperate to be able to change clan logos and things like that to kind of more detailed ones, or essentially, can we get out of the 50 clan limit? It's maybe 100, 200 would be really, really nice. But it says here a little more about the community. There are many enthusiastic clans in Japan who have been active for a long time. Are there any plans to add new content or features to the clans? Yannick said, we talk about our future plans in the future. Good translation. But of course, we want further strengthen the social experience of the Division 2 and bring it closer to the core of the game. Clans have been a feature since launch, and we haven't done much with them until now. So we want to shake things up. We have a few ideas, and I don't think that's anything that they plan to do now. I think, again, it's a bad translation, but essentially it does sound like it's something that has been discussed internally, and maybe they've just not got around to it. Then we're going to talk about storage. And this is information that we know. We got expansions of our stash along with New York and the Brooklyn DLC and the Year 1 pass. But they've got to be cautious due to technical limitations. And I expect this season, that's the anniversary season that is coming with the realistic mode, and that's going to add a character slot temporarily. There's probably some pretty heavy technical limitations when it comes to that as well. But this was a very interesting point. However, when it comes to storage capacity, we believe we need to address the fundamental problem. Why do players store so many items? How do we address this issue rather than simply increasing capacity? We're looking into ways to reduce the need to store each and every item in the game in the first place. And I think it is going in the right direction. For instance, being able to craft the exotics, but it would be really nice that you could perhaps get rid of that exotic, but then when you get it back at a small cost, perhaps all the rolls are where you left them. You're not kind of starting afresh and having to min-max it, up its expertise again, you know, and things like that. And I feel like if they go down that route, that could be a really good idea for minimizing people's inventory. But yeah, then, you know, just giving small costs to the game to be able to, you know, withdraw that item back to exactly how it was. But obviously that's, again, probably a bit of a system that would need to be built. Then we've got build diversity. It says, do you pay attention to the usage rate of builds with the distinction between red, blue and yellow and a wide variety of builds available? I think many people tend to rely on Striker. And I mean, we all know that Striker is pretty much the all red go-to. If you've got a Striker build, you can do anything in the game. But Yannick said, yes, everyone likes Strikers, right? But that's not a bad thing. It's a natural that there's a set that everybody likes. However, you need to offer different options between red, blue and yellow. The reason players are stuck in the red zone is because it embodies the shooter fantasy. And in a shooter game, killing enemies quickly is more appealing than increasing durability. You know, essentially it is, right? You're not going to build an all red blue build and take forever to kill things when you can just go all red Strikers. We don't intend to go against that, but we will increase attractive options, which will encourage players to try other playstyles. I don't think we will ever surpass red, but I hope to continue this style in the future, creating seasons where blue is stronger and yellow is stronger. So I think that's kind of translating to, you know, red's always going to be the definitive DPS build, which obviously makes sense. But there are maybe like some of the Gs that we had back in the day in Division 1 where skill builds would be absolutely insane. Like, you know what I mean? And things like that. Then we've got, do you have any concrete ideas for making these new builds feasible? But then Yannick said, first, we want to expand on our sets and brands. It's difficult to add new sets when we have powerful sets like Striker, and adding sets in similar strength would lead to inflation. Going forward, we'll be increasing the number of powerful sets that are tailored to specific play styles. We also have some ideas for creating new types of items that aren't sets, exotics, or brands. So that's pretty interesting. I wonder what these items would be. But I think, you know, unit alloys, tipping scales, they've done a pretty good job of expanding recently. You know, and I believe that's down to Rawl. I think he's done a you know, pretty excellent job when it comes to the balancing and the new sets that we've had over the last few seasons. Then they talk about Realism mode, which we've covered. There's nothing new here. And then we've seen that gameplay previously, which, yeah, is pretty good. But the comment here from Yannick was, it's a new mode for existing players, but we also want to introduce new players to the Division 2. It's designed as a two-tiered experience where you first focus on combat, learn the basics, cover and weapons, and then get interested in the RPG mechanics. And then this was a little bit more of interesting information when it comes to the Realism mode. So although it's pretty clear that some of the UI has been changed, some of the mechanics have changed, gear has been removed, you know, and things like that. But what you can see is that I was surprised that headshot damage for all weapons in this preview build was 900%. So it's not like they've, you know, I thought they might have changed how the game works on a fundamental level, but it's like giving 900% causes all enemies in this mode to be one-shot headshot, essentially. So that's a little bit interesting because I did think it was something to do with the caliber of the bullet, but maybe it's 900% on sniper rifles. Maybe that value adjusts depending on what gun you're using. I guess until we get hold of it, we don't really know. And maybe this is part of a build that we might not even see these kind of stats. And it was just something so that they could actually preview it and actually have a go. But yeah, pretty interesting nonetheless. And then we've got elites do a lot of damage. Yannick said it's not necessarily a one hit, but depending on the weapon, it might be a one hit with a sniper, but not with a pistol, which is obviously just feeding into what I've just said. With bosses, we put a lot of emphasis on armor, and bosses that are armored are visually more resistant to damage. We're balancing that out. And it says something about compromising the realism and immersion. So the time to kill also has a case by case basis. And I guess that means that, you know, they're kind of making it so you can't one-shot a tank. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're still going to have to put in at least a few bullets to make it work. You know, realism, essentially. You know, not 300 mags, but essentially maybe 3 or 4 bullets to kill something instead. Body shots, maybe 2 or 3. You know, like leg shots, more. Like, you know what I mean? So, while bullet resources are limited, pistols have infinite spare ammo, so players are good aim, can play more run and gun style. Was this intentional? And then Yannick said, obviously the early builds aren't final and we're still working on it, but I think a skilled player can run and gun and do it well. I think it's fine for an experienced player to be able to do it, but I also think the majority of players will pretty easily defeat it, I guess, or beat the expansion. You're also vulnerable, especially in the open world, so being shot from 360 degrees is dangerous if you're not careful, Yannick said. And then they've asked again, so will I also be killed with a single headshot? So then Yannick said, there's no body part damage setting, so you can't die in one shot to the head, but if you're not careful, you can still die pretty easily. So I guess there is some kind of protection there when it comes to just being one-tapped and it becoming annoying and dying. Then they're talking about the anniversary pass. The question was, will the 10th anniversary season limited pass be based on earning XP or by completing missions as the past, or will it include unique elements that are different from previous versions? Yannick said the previous format is the same as before. However, since the period is short, we will adjust the amount of challenge required. We have recently introduced new mechanisms such as community challenges, and we plan to continue adding new goals in the future. So I do wonder if we're going to get a brand new community challenge with this. That will be interesting. And then, however, there will be no new season mods for the anniversary season. We want you to enjoy the rewards, play the events, and prepare for next season. Again, pretty interesting information that we never found out. Then they've got Survivors, which we talked about last year. Can you tell us about the development progress? We're still developing it. We're releasing information little by little, and the team will share details as soon as it's ready. Development is progressing smoothly. And then they talked about when it has been announced. And obviously, going back to Survivors, it's pretty much confirmed now by Julian with his other interview that people are actually going to be testing this mode very, very shortly. I would absolutely trade a kidney in to be part of this. So if anybody from Massive is listening, you can have my spare kidney. Then there's a little bit about mobile. With the release of the Division Resurgence coming up, are you considering any kind of tie-in campaigns with the Division 2? And then it says here, we're going to have a collaboration between the two titles where you'll be treated as a Division player no matter which one you play. And you'll get rewards for both no matter which one you play. We want players to stay in the franchise, so we'll have a mutual reward system. Which makes me think that this mobile game is going to be available and released and out in March, because that's when the anniversary season is. Then we've got the curious about the progression of the Division 3. But then, you know, Yannick said development is going, but it's a different team. It's their project, and they'll announce it when they're ready to talk about it. Then we got a lovely picture of Raul, Yannick, and Daria. And they said that the interview took place on the first day of the FPS Day X. And that is kind of it. But we've got a little bit of a tagline here. Even if you haven't played Division 2 yet, why not take advantage of the 10th anniversary to make your debut? And I guess like the feedback has always been now, there is never a better time to play the Division 2. And it does sound like March will be insanely jam-packed with the regular season following straight after, which at the moment I'm kind of guessing is Year 8 Season 1. So a huge amount of stuff coming over the next few weeks, I guess. And yeah, well, I guess we'll get some more details as well. Anyway, that's going to be it. I'll link this article down below if you want to try and translate it any better than I have, or you're interested in some of the extra details that we got in it. I'll link it down below in the details section. So don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. As always, agents, thank you so much for all your love and support. If that 40k is here, thank you. If it's not, we're getting close. Don't forget to hit that sub button, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.